So many times today, people say, I need something to block all the EMFs, but you can't. Our phones, this conversation, it's going across our computers. Without the electromagnetic frequencies, we wouldn't have the lights. We wouldn't have all this stuff going on. So we need to raise our frequency, our vibration, so we stay in connection, just like you're suggesting, Linda. Then we can be balanced in spite of what's going on in the whirlwind around us.
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
This is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again this week. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe and share with a friend. Today, we are talking sacred geometry. I have Gregory Hoag with me. Gregory has been researching sacred geometry and consciousness expansion for over 40 years. Welcome, Gregory.
Thank you for having me, Linda. It's fun to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Gregory, you have been researching sacred geometry and creating geometric structures to help expand consciousness. I'm curious, how do you know which sacred geometric structure does what?
Sometimes when I make it, I have no idea. It's like the way we create these forms is that we work with guidance, my wife and we've been doing that for 40 years since I went through a lot of Kundalini. She went through a near-death experience. Both of us have been able to tune in to higher knowledge and information. And sometimes our guidance will say, you need to do this, like they did with our pendants when they were first being born. And then we would slowly start discovering by using these as tools, they leverage energy and they help us move energy. So sometimes we get some feedback from guidance, but often it's using them, experimenting with them, and then people will come along and do something with it that I've never even thought of. And they say, oh my God, this helped me ground and be able to write a book that's been stuck inside me for so long. That creative impulse has finally started flowing. Or things that go on with health and things that go on with pain in the body that gets removed and transformed. With the pendants, it shifts the energy coming in and it shifts the energy coming out. The way we started realizing that was people would say, like a grandmother told us that her grandkids used to run away from her when she would visit. But now that she has the pendant, they crawl all over her because they're attracted to the energy. A prison guard told us that the prisoners treat him much nicer. They're much better when he has his pendant on. Teachers, psychologists. I've had lawyers put some of these in their room where they have disclosures and find that people don't yell at each other as much. There's a smoothing of the energy. That stress that we talked about blocking this energy, actually, if you bring something like this in or have this energy flowing, the stress reduces. There's no longer that fear coming up within us about, oh my God, it's not going to work out. What's going to happen? Oh, that person never forgave me. I'm not going to be able to forgive myself. We get caught up in the past and the future. These pendants, the things we're working with the energy. I know it's helped me be present more and more and more. And then you can start playing with serendipity. Universe just has a way of always helping us be there in the right place at the right time.
Beautiful stories, and what an easy way to make shifts in your life.
It is, and yet it doesn't do the work for you. It helps you leverage energy, being able to focus more, get more done. It's like my wife found that she stopped procrastinating so much when she felt empowered to really be able to focus on her purpose.
So, do you think that the two-dimensional flat shapes also have benefit, or does it have to be a 3D shape?
You see, what a two-dimensional geometry does is it's taken in through the eyes, into the body, into our physical beingness. And so whatever understanding we bring to it, whatever understanding we've read about it, carried with it, it doesn't have an energy independent of our interaction. Otherwise, you could have a full book of two-dimensional drawings and just close the book and hold your hand over the book and be able to feel the energy. But that isn't so. With these tools, I've literally said nothing and just put them in someone's hands, and they'll often comment they can feel energy. They know something is shifting. The pendant has two sides. One side moves the energy up, the other down. And when I put it in someone's hands and I tell them that the two sides are different, and I'll put it in one way and they'll go, oh, I can feel my feet. It's like they're buzzing. And then I'll flip it over and they'll go, I can feel the difference. It feels like it's moving up and just so that's the difference. And I can do that when it's in a bag. They don't have to see it. I've done tests with these with brain waves where they're in a box or there's an empty box. And so, we allow for that kind of an aspect that if a person doesn't know what's above them, we can still measure brain wave shifts. But you do that with something two-dimensional, and it's like a piece of paper. If you don't tell them or show them, there's not the energy transfer.
I can definitely feel the energy off of the symbols beside you, especially the top two. It's really quite fascinating, especially considering we're doing this on video and we're thousands of miles away from each other. I'm wondering what you think about using your mind to access sacred geometry. And what comes to mind is that rather popular meditation where you step into a Merkaba, which is a sacred geometric shape. I'm just curious what you think about using your mind to access sacred geometry.
We are incredible beings. Like I said, we are multi-dimensional beings. That means that the mind is working on a higher dimensional level, actually more like a fifth dimensional level. And if you have experienced stepping into a physical Merkaba before, it makes it much easier for the energy to be duplicated when you imagine it inside your mind's eye, because focus is really important in directing subtle energy. So by working with a three-dimensional Merkaba and then imagining yourself stepping into it, as I said, if you've had a physical experience, it's easier, but we do amazing things with our intent in our mind. And that's why they've proven that prayer and united meditation with groups of people focus, that it does build a field and it can shift things in the physical. And I've even seen where if people have a belief system long enough, it can physically change reality. that was existing before the belief system. I mean, human beings can trump reality literally with their beliefs.
We are more powerful than we know, that's for sure. Now, the other thing that I've seen people use sacred geometry for is for creating grids. Sometimes they might use stones or crystals, or sometimes energy and intention to put, let's say, a whole house or a room or even their bed within a geometric structure.
There are many positive things that could be done with dowsing, and where you can douse an area and find that there may be something incompatible with your well-being, and that you might find changing directions in relationship to magnetic north, or in a house, pounding metal stakes, sometimes steel, sometimes copper, around the outside, can disrupt the energetic flow of certain things to create a more pristine space inside. So doing that with gems, because crystal has a geometric structure and the metal has a particular geometric structure. So again, you're working with geometries that interact with the way energy flows. And when you're working with the physical and you lay out a pattern or a grid, it will affect the way energy flows around or through that area. And we interact with all types of energies in relationship to the earth and to vortexes, because there are little vortexes and energy flows coming out of the earth, going into the earth everywhere. And you look at how animals and plants interact with these different fields, and it's amazing. Human beings do as well, only we're more unaware of a lot of it. We don't depend upon it from a life-sustaining perspective. In our book, we talk about this little brush that does a better job at predicting hurricanes, because it would affect its traveling south to South America in the wintertime. So it does a better job than NASA or all of the different agencies combined can't predict it as well as this little thrush. And so animals have that ability to tap in, and human beings too also can tap in. And it's just a matter of opening ourselves up to those higher dimensional levels and being able to bring it through the heart into the body, and then let the brain utilize that knowledge. But when we speak of coming from the heart, we're really speaking of coming through the heart with that higher information.
40 years is a long time to be studying and researching anything. I'm curious, what opened that door for you to set your focus on sacred geometry?
Well, in the 70s, that whole decade, I received knowledge, initiation from about 3 or 4 different gurus. I was in ashrams. I was looking for a way to enlighten myself. At the end of that decade, with a friend, I built a pyramid that, even though it was only 10 feet high, in today's dollars, it would be close to $250,000 in expense, because of the size of the crystals, the gold, the silver, what we used in it. And when I slept in it, it set off my kundalini. That's a flow of energy that's moving up from the earth, reaching back into the higher realms. And it was intense on my body. It was literally burning holes in my hands and my feet from the energy passing through. And when it calmed down, when I got it in control over a couple of years, I began seeing patterns. I began seeing things that exist before they become physical, and I started building them. And I started communicating with beings that were supporting me in this process. And when I met my wife, I was carrying this box of geometries, and she had been channeling Buckminster Fuller, and she had asked Bucky the week before, he was getting too technical. She said, bring me someone that can understand this or stop giving me such detailed information. So the next week we got together and we realized we had work to do together. And that started us on this journey. I didn't know some of the things I was building had names. I didn't know about the Platonic solids. I hadn't heard anything about sacred geometry. I just was building what I was seeing and what I was being instructed to do. And then over the years, I started realizing, oh, Egyptians were drawing upon some of this. Stonehenge was based on this knowledge. Oh, what was going on with the churches in England, the Freemasons, all of this knowledge that's been encoded into these ancient structures, hidden in all the different religions where we have so many rosary beads, 54, or so many mala beads, twice that, 108, and how those two numbers relate to geometries. And what are those geometries? And how do they affect our bodies? So,
Gregory, why do you think we lost touch with it? I think it's pretty obvious that many ancient civilizations had connection with sacred geometry, did some very amazing things with it, and maybe even as close as a few hundred years ago, we still had some connection to sacred geometry. What happened?
partially it was beginning with the Industrial Revolution and the new science, the science that started creating the universe like a clock, and everything had order to it, but it was mechanical. It lost the divinity behind it, and we became powerful. It's like we could do whatever we wanted to do. And so we started building and doing things. All of this, the technology has been pulling us further and further from our natural connections. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, people started leaving the farms. They started leaving the rhythms of nature. They started leaving the rhythm of rising and going to bed with the sun. And with the light bulb, with Edison and what Nikola Tesla did, that started shifting our hormonal balance because we started staying up later. So all these things started feeding us into a reality. And today, look at the realities we're building, where we're looking at our cell phones constantly. That shifts the way we breathe. That shifts our bodies intrinsically. Now with AI coming in, all of these elements are slowly taking us away from the fullness of what it is to be human. And some of the things that I point to in our book, some of these numbers came from pre-Diluvian times, before the flood. That means it's over 9,600 years ago. I believe, and there are many books, especially one by Graham Hancock, a number of them, that speak to pre-Diluvian civilizations that worked with multidimensional realities. You can see by the level of what they were capable of doing in building a pyramid, moving blocks of stone, sometimes not only tens of tons, but hundreds of tons in weight, and being able to fit them in place. There were ways they worked with numbers and patterns and rhythms that allow them to work with universal order in a different way. And the path of technology that we followed has taken us off from that type of path. We still sometimes today, some architects will draw upon it, but most just do what they can do because look what steel can allow you to build and how high you can go and what amazing things you can create. And so we've fallen into a different path that will eventually, I think, really hurt us and is hurting us because we are losing our humanity in the process.
And yet, if we connect with the sacred geometry around us or in some way invite it into our lives, it could help us redirect some of this chaotic energy that's around us, right?
It's like so many times today, people say, I need something to block all the EMFs, but you can't. Our phones, this conversation, it's going across our computers. Without the electromagnetic frequencies, we wouldn't have the lights. We wouldn't have all this stuff going on. So we need to raise our frequency, our vibration, so we stay in connection, just like you're suggesting, Linda. Then we can be balanced in spite of what's going on in the whirlwind around us.
Can you also use sacred geometry for connection? And by that I mean like connection. You know, maybe talking to your guides or awakening your psychic gifts.
Absolutely. Because when you start opening up those pathways to the higher dimensions of your being, that's where intuition is coming from. The creativity that we express, that we admire in great artists, they all say, I didn't do this. It came through me. And what is it that's speaking to them? It's that higher self. It's that soul. It's that spirit of God working through us that allows us to do these miraculous things. And so by opening up those channels internally, we're able to more easily bring through that intuition, that knowledge, and that serendipity, which is really playing with spirit. It's when you drive and you find perfect parking spot and then you get out and the person you were hoping to meet is standing right there and it's all just flowing together. You go, oh my God, I'm part of the play. I feel that God spirit in my life. And that's what's important when we get into that rhythm. And that happens when we follow that rhythm that's in the bigger part of ourselves. It's always there waiting to dance with us. It's just that we get preoccupied at the tip of our iceberg of being, where the ego says, this is my reality and I'm going to control it. And I see that I have limited resources. Therefore, I've got to take all I can, and other people are taking from me. And we get this separation and this fear. And it's by going to the bigger part of ourselves that we realize we're connected, that we realize that we can be in service to all, and in so doing, we're in service to ourselves. And often when we start moving into that space, that's where we first have to acknowledge the love we have for this character. You know, this may be ego, but it's got us a long way. It's gotten us here. And we need to love it and go deeper within it and give it things to do and play with, and then expand into the heart of our being and let soul start directing us more, and then start recognizing each other and helping each other. And it's a wonderful time to be here on planet Earth because of this opportunity. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on today that doesn't feel so good that we're going, okay, where's my reality? What am I going to do to overcome this stuff that's not working?
It's the point of choice, right? We're in the time of history where choice is so important.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Gregory, have you ever done any past life exploration? I bet anything that you've had some lifetimes in Atlantis and are bringing through some of that wisdom through your research with sacred geometry.
I've had a lot of lifetimes in Atlantis. That was one thing with the Kundalini opening. I could see a lot of past lives. I actually started living out past lives simultaneous to this, and it got to be very hectic and confusing. But I've had a number of lives in Atlantis because that's where a lot of this technology and understanding is coming from.
That's what I'm picking up.
Yeah.
Gregory, with so many years exploring sacred geometry, I wonder if you have a favorite shape that you like to work with.
That's unfair, Linda. It's asking a mother, which child is your favorite? Which one? They all have different purposes. And so there are things that, as far as geometries go, I love the pendant. And for those that can see, I can show you what it is that I'm wearing, which is this image right here. This is the front and back of a pendant. So in one way, I would say this is the favorite, although it has shifted numerous times over the years. And the reason it's the favorite is I put it on every day and I notice when I don't have it on because I feel the difference in my field and I carry it with me wherever I'm going. And we've been able to, through some discoveries we made about working with three-dimensional geometry, we've been able to put three-dimensional forms onto that two-dimensional pendant such that it picks up three-dimensional energy. So they're there, but it has a number of them. It has probably about 10 different geometries and a whole slew of different coils, antenna systems, oscillating crystals, photon generator, all kinds of minerals. We've been working more with the divine feminine in it, in some of the new shapes that we've put on. And we have a whole pearl inside because it's one of those naturally made items that has the power and resonance of a crystal. Pearls are amazing, amazing creation.
And last question for you, Gregory. For the listeners, if they'd like to bring sacred geometry into their life, is there a particular symbol that's good to start with?
To start bringing in the geometries of nature and just realizing what nature is reflecting with the flowers, with the way seed petals are thrown out. And to have a particular shape, sometimes I would say the two-dimensional image that is the image for the heart in the chakra system from East India. It's a six-pointed star with a circle around it. And that's really about opening the heart. And you talked earlier about people imagining themselves inside a Merkaba, which is a star tetrahedron. And that star tetrahedron, when you project it onto a flat surface, it's a six-pointed star, which is all about balancing heaven and earth, higher and lower, masculine and feminine. It brings the yin and yang into balance. And so if we start working with that and then realize the yin yang symbol, which has, the drop of white interspersing with the drop of black, and in the little dot in the center of each of them, there's the opposite white and the opposite black. So there's a little bit of darkness in all light and a little bit of light in all darkness. It's that Eastern way of understanding what we've made separate in Western philosophy of good and evil. It's good and evil is combined. So working with that kind of a geometry, like the yin yang, the star tetrahedron, the six-pointed star, the balance, everything surrounded by the circle, that's soul, that's God, that's higher self, that's endless, it's infinite. You can trace that circle forever, and you never, ever come to a corner or an edge. So we are on an infinite journey here, and these are all thoughts for us to ponder as we grow spiritually. And that's, I think, the real opportunity for us in this lifetime to connect with higher self and be able to bring through more love, more consciousness to be of service to everyone.
Wonderful, Gregory. If anyone would like to know more about your work, where can we send them?
If they want to get a free chapter for our book, if they go to iConnect, CONNECT, the number 2, and then all.com, iConnectToAll.com, that will take them to our website. If they put /book, it will take them to our book. And if they put /chapter, they can get a free chapter, the first chapter in our book, where we're talking about consciousness.
Gregory, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com, pick up your copy of Learning to Listen, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now.